I find it hard to believe, and I'm not defending Derek Chauvin in any way. I find it hard to believe, first of all, that he intentionally meant to kill George Floyd. I mean, I don't know what led to that video that we saw where his knee is on his neck.
We have an update on this guy.
I don't think that we should defund the police.
I'm kind of old school. I think, you play, you get paid a ton of money to do a certain job, and just do it and let the chips fall where they may. I think we make too much money to voice an opinion.
That being Brett Favre, a man who says this.
Text messages obtained by Mississippi Today show Favre saying he helped secure government grant money for a new arena. And he personally was paid more than $1 million to give 3 motivational speeches that never happened.
And then turns around and throws his hat in the ring.
According to court filings, Favre didn't give up, writing the former governor again about the new volleyball center a few months later, saying, "We obviously need your help big time, and time is working against us." The former governor responded, "But we have to follow the law. I am too old for federal prison."
Of a state welfare scandal, the same one that fails to deliver clean drinking water to its own residents. So what is the latest?
Lawyers for Favre said the Mississippi Department of Human Services, quote, groundlessly and irresponsibly seeks to blame Favre for its own grossly improper and unlawful handling of welfare funds.
Mississippi DHS says more than $20 million was wrongfully taken from the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families anti-poverty program. Favre received $1.1 million, but maintains he did not know where that money came from.
Let's pause here. Favre is basically claiming innocence, that he had no idea this was going on.
Brett Favre asked the head of a nonprofit handling welfare funds, quote, "If you were to pay me, is there any way that the media could find out where it came from and how much?"
One could simply say, what about this? Right? The journalist who broke this story, Anna Wolf, spoke on it.
There's been sort of a trickle of information, but we're learning more and more here recently through text messages, both that I obtained and that have been entered into a court filing, that show kind of how Favre was discussing these deals with welfare officials. So, he was aware that this money was coming from the Department of Human Services. He was working with John Davis on pulling down this money.
That name sounds familiar, doesn't it?
According to the court documents, this man, John Davis Agency, shelled out millions of dollars that were supposed to go to poor families in the state. Instead, investigators say Davis used sham contracts to improperly funnel the cash to a series of projects. A state judge today sentenced Davis to more than 30 years in prison.
And how did Favre approach these discussions with the now criminally charged Davis?
The way that he spoke about it was really like, "I'm trying to save myself some money here. Can y'all please help me out?" Right? And getting the governor on board in order to make the deals happen.
Thus, today, with the help from former Trump lawyer Eric Hirschman, who has taken the NFL legend under his wing as a client, will Favre & Co. filed a motion to dismiss, saying Brett was wrongly named as a defendant in the lawsuit. Hirschman, in typical Trumpian fashion, basically used the witch hunt narrative, and they used my client's name, dragged it through the mud in order for people to pay attention. To be clear, Favre's lawyers are doing their job. They are representing their client. However, it is our job to cut through the nonsense and deliver it to you unfiltered. Favre saying he had no clue. Okay, and playing dumb has been a pattern of his.
As this has just been unfolding, the main players of this scheme, namely Phil Bryant and Brett Favre, have sort of tried to make excuses for their involvement.
And he's pulled this shtick previously.
I was thinking about this text message that I sent Brett Favre in early 2020, while I was breaking the stories about his involvement with the pharmaceutical company and also the volleyball stadium. I asked him very simply if he had ever had a conversation with the governor about the volleyball stadium, and he said no. And that's in a text message. I mean, that seems like a pretty simple thing, but that's a pretty big lie.
The problem is he was seeking money in the first place from then Governor Phil Bryant to build a new volleyball stadium, the college where he played football and his daughter Bray Lee attended to play volleyball. Then, after that, he threw out the idea of using prison labor in order to cut costs. Cutting costs is something that apparently he is very familiar with. They offered stock to Bryant in the sham concussion company Prevacus.
This pharmaceutical company, because I think this is very interesting. As I understand it, with these pharmaceutical companies, is this pharmaceutical company public yet? Were they being publicly traded at the time that that Brett Favre was doing this? Was the intent here with Brett Favre and other people to invest into this company that has this drug, take the company public, and then make a ton of money? What was the impetus for them to get involved in this? Was he trying to make the people of Mississippi pay for his private investments and enticing others to do that? Is that what I'm to understand here?
I love this question because I don't think I've gotten this question before, and that is absolutely reflected in the text messages. At one point, he said that he expected to make $20 million on the deal, on selling this pharmaceutical drug. At one point, he was asking the scientist who started the company if, how likely it was that this was going to pass, FDA or like pass these clinical trials. And the company owner came back and said, if someone dies, we're done. But other than that, we'll keep going and keep raising money.
And then appearing to ask for money after that insane text message that will live in infamy of, if I were to receive the money, would the media find out where it came from? Kind of big. If you want to find out more about what Prevacus is, we did a deep dive. Check out our clip on demand.
We published some text messages that showed that Brett Favre had offered the governor stock in this pharmaceutical company in exchange for his help. And fast forward to 2 days after Phil Bryant left office, he agreed by text message to accept that stock. And in the last year in office, he was receiving updates from Brett Favre about how this company was receiving public money outside of the view of the public. After that story published, Nancy New pled guilty within a few days of the conclusion of that series publishing.
They will argue he is the scapegoat. He is receiving all the blame. And ex-Governor Phil Bryant is being let off the hook. It's ludicrous to say that Mr. Favre has been singled out in any way, the auditor's office said in a statement Monday evening. And as far as our office is concerned, Mr. Favre remains liable for $228,000 in interest for non-performance of the contract in question. Ouch. So what do I currently see? A mini civil war between Brett Favre, Phil Bryant, Tate Reeves, who has been brought into this because the man who was bringing subpoenas against some people that Reeves did not want subpoenas being brought against, his donors at USM, Ted DiBiase, Brett Favre. I mean, the news, John Davis, the list goes on and on and on in this case. But what we are seeing is all of them butt heads publicly. So the motion to dismiss, does it have legs? We will have to wait and see. But in my opinion, it shouldn't.